this is the next part. So we left off about here. So the instructions of the patriarch are detailed in the next series of paintings, in the first of which I conceive the chaos is portrayed by the confusion of the limbs of every kind of animal. The second represents the creation of the universe. The third, the formation of mankind. The others again, that of animals, and of the heavenly bodies. Okay. It's interesting. It's like a kind of like talking about like Hopi mythology. Hopi mythology and kind of like Mesoamerican mythology. Here we go. That's a good way to put it. Very interesting indeed. The second book appears to have comprehended the history of the antediluvian world, and of this the two succeeding fragments seem to have been extracts. The historian, as usual, has appropriated the history of the world to Chaldea. He finds 9 persons, probably presented as kings, preceding Noah, who is again introduced under the name Shisuthros, and he supposes that the representation was that of the first dynasty of the Chaldaean kings. So, I mean, I guess in the 1800s they didn't really know about more of, like, the world at the time. I mean, honestly, like, at least for an Englishman, you would only know so much based on what you would have translated from the Portuguese and Spanish, and if they translated any stuff that was in Arabic, because we know that a lot of stuff was translated from the more ancient languages to Arabic before they were introduced to the more Western languages. And I think, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that has to do with the rise of the Islamic empires in the Near East. So, that sparked a lot of, like, I guess, discoveries in those areas with those people, but they never got translated to us, and we never really speak much about them, other than, like, talking about some typical ancient sites, typical Western Hellenistic history, I would say. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, I also want to add that, let's see, it's interesting how they really point to Chaldea as being the center point of this world, and now somebody can easily argue against this and say, like, well, this book's kind of outdated and the information's not going to be good anymore, so there's more information out there now, and this book's worthless. But if you think for a second to yourself, and you think about all the historians and archaeologists, they're not really going out to those places anymore. I mean, really, nobody spends that much money out there. We still really don't know much of Africa, South America. I mean, most of the population, like I said before, like Australia, not many people live in, like, the center of the continent. We really don't know much about northern Canada and the people that live there. It's very quiet up there. Most of the Canadian population is said to live on the U.S. border, and I guess along the coastline as well. So it just kind of puts you into perspective of, like, how much we actually pay attention to what's going on this earth. And we may think that we know at all times what's going on, but I don't know. I think there's something deeper that we need to look at. And it's very interesting to see, like, how far it can go, what people say, because you take this information, right, and one person will say, oh, this is old information, it's useless. But if you really just look at it and think about what they were thinking back then. You know, maybe they were onto something, and maybe this could lead to a different path of kind of like thought. That I wouldn't say it gets shut down or like this book is like banned or what have you, but it's just kind of like you know, the academics, like when I take my general studies, like they don't give me a book like this. They give me like a textbook or like a something that they want, like that's like kind of really well known in history already, and we already know, and we already like they kind of like just direct you towards an answer, and it's like, oh, you got the right answer. Here's your A plus. And, you know, you think to yourself like, oh, that's all there is to it. But, you know, just know that there's a whole world out there that a lot of people don't get to see. Anyways, let's continue. That was another tangent I went off on. Another one of my tangents. So, I'm just throwing myself right here. From the universal consent of history and tradition, he was well assured that Alaris or Orion, the Nimrod of the scriptures, was the founder of Babylon and the first king. Okay, so this is saying like the people of Chaldea say that Nimrod was the first king of Babylon. Now I think in like biblical texts, like in the New Testament, no, in the Old Testament, yeah, I'm pretty sure in the Old Testament, it's only mentioned that Nimrod is like a king of Babylon. I don't think he built Babylon itself, and I forget exactly who. I mean, I can just chat GPT this, really, or I can just like, you know, make a whole script beforehand, but it's better to just really ponder just kind of like what they're saying. So he's saying like all these crazy things. Nobody says this type of stuff, you know what I mean? Like Nimrod, if you think about like Nimrod, like why is he saying like this particular thing was the founder of Babylon and the first king? Like I don't think it says he's the first king of Chaldea, does it? Who was the first king of? Let's see what ChatGPT says. Who was the first king of Chaldea? Was it Nimrod? The Neo-Babylonian, yeah, so I know it's the Neo-Babylonian dynasty, so here's what ChatGPT is saying. The first king of Chaldea in historical terms is often associated with King Nabopolassar of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 626 BCE. So they when they refer to like Chaldea and when all this stuff happened, they refer to 600 BC. So is this possibly older? I mean, so I wonder if they're gonna. So who's? I think Shithus is. I think we read that. That's Noah. I think. Let me see. Who is Shithus? I don't know who that is. Okay, so he's supposed to be Noah, so yeah, I think he's the 10. Destruction of... Oh, yeah. No, Nabopolassar, this is Nabonassar. The destruction of the records by Nabonassar left him to fill up the intermediate names as he could, who were inserted. Is not easy so to determine. Here's a little side text. In the Syriac Chronicle of Barhebraeus, the names in the catalog are given to certain recluses of the line of Seth, called the sons of God, who live upon Mount Hermon and afterwards apostated and became fathers of the giants. Okay, so this is supposed to be like all pre-flood, if whatever they're referring to here is an Orthan thing. Berosus is given also a full and accurate description of the deluge, which is wonderfully consonant with the Mosaic account. Okay, yeah. I think Moses wrote a lot of the Bible, but he didn't write Exodus. I think it was written by somebody else. By Ezra, I believe. Pretty sure. I mean, what was I going to say as well? Oh, yeah. The Sumerian Kings list. I think some of the Sumerian fragments and tablets and stuff like that, they also have the account of the flood, and I think it's like in their kings list, and it's mentioned that like the kings rule over the people, and then like when the flood happens, they have the people rule over the people, and then the people report to the kings. So that's that. We have also a similar account, or it may be an epitome of the same from the Syrian history of Abydenus, who was a disciple of Aristotle and a copyist from Berosus. I have given also a small extract from the fragments of Nicholas Damascenus relative to the deluge and the ark, whose wreck is said by him as well as Berosus, Chrysostom, and other writers to have remained upon Ararat even at the very time in which they wrote. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear a lot of like people on YouTube and stuff like that saying that, like, oh yeah, Noah, his ark was in Turkey. Oh no, his ark was in Mount Ararat. That's where his ark's at. So, I guess they were claiming that as well in the 1800s. Mankind appear to have dwelt some time in Armenia. Yeah, that's true. And the patriarch allotted to his descendants the different regions of the earth, with commands to separate into distinct communities. His injunctions, however, were disobeyed, and great numbers, perhaps all the human race, started from Armenia in a body and, according to the scriptures, journeyed westward, but according to Berosus, traveled by a circuitous route to the plains of Shinar. It's a little bit more north, I guess. Northwest. I mean, I always assumed like these Canaanite groups, like the Greeks and some of the Italians and probably Spanish as well. I don't really know about some of the Gaelic peoples, but maybe like some of the Druids, or not Druids, but early Irish Pictish groups, and like English, they would all stem from the Canaanite language. I mean, and for them to say like, well, no, it's a different group. It's like, and the people from Greece came from like Scythic. Like some people argue that they're like a Scythic group, a Scythian group. But I think they're like a Phoenician group, and they went westwards. And this book, I mean, this book is saying it's westward, right? Journeyed westward, but according to Berosus, traveled by a circuitous route to the plains of Shinar. I really don't know where that's at. I'm assuming it's just north, but I guess I could be wrong. But by combining the two narratives, we may conclude that they followed the winding course of the Euphrates till they halted upon the celebrated plains where the enterprising spirit of Nimrod tempted him to. What does that mean? The enterprising spirit of Nimrod tempted him to aspire to the dominion of the world, and to found the tower and city of Babel as the metropolis of his future universal empire. So, let me get this straight. So he's saying like humans were in Armenia. And he's just saying like humans built the Tower of Babel for Nimrod. Upon the Tower of Babel and the events connected with it will be found some very interesting fragments from Avicenna, from Hestasius, a very ancient Greek writer, and from the Babylonian Sibyl, and from Eupolemus. Now, I can look these people up, but I'm assuming some of them are Greek because of the US suffix, or they're like Roman Greek writers. Even though this guy said he was not going to take from any Hellenistic groups, I guess, but whatever. And these fragments are detailed the erection of the tower. Really? Wait a minute, okay, what the hell? Yeah, right. What is this crap? What am I reading now? Dude, what? And these fragments are detailed the erection of the tower. No freaking way. Okay. Let me look this up. From Hestasius, a very ancient Greek writer, from the Babylonian symbol, and from Eupolemus. What are the Sibyl oracles? I'm sorry, it's ChatGPT's kind of being weird. I got kind of lost in it. I don't know what the heck. Sylvan oracles are a collection of prophetic writings attributed to various sibyls who were female prophets or seers in the ancient world. What the hell? I never heard of this. These oracles were written in Greek hexameter verse and spanned several centuries, combining the elements of pagan, Jewish, and Christian, and yada yada yada. The oracles are divided into 14 books, though the number of books and their contents varied over time, but they contain prophecies on a wide range of topics. Oracles do the Sibylline oracles have details of the erection of the Tower of Babel? They do not contain a detailed account of the Tower of Babel similar to what is found in the Bible. However, they do make a reference to the Tower of Babel in a more symbolic and passing manner. For example, in Book 3, one of the earlier Jewish influenced book, there is a mention of the tower built by impious men, which seems to correspond to the story of Babel. The passage talks about a great tower being constructed by arrogant men, and how the gods intervened to scatter them, preventing them from completing the tower. Interesting. This reference aligns with the theme of human pride. Whatever. So, they do not provide a full or detailed account. The narrative is also used to reinforce. Okay. So what else do we have here? Okay, so in the fragments are detailed the erections of the tower, the dispersions of its contrivers, and the confusion of the languages. So we all know well much about the Tower of Babel and what happened. But, I mean, I thought it was going to give me some information about that, but it looks like ChatGPT kind of made it kind of cute or whatever. It made it sound cute. With the additional circumstances of the violent destruction of the building and the Titanian War, which formed so remarkable an event in all traditions of the heathen. Okay, so does it mention a war between titans and, I don't know, gods? Yes. The Chaldaean oracles do make references to a war between the Titans and the Olympian gods. This conflict, known as Titanomachy, was a legendary war in which the younger gods, led by Zeus, fought against the older generation of gods for control of the cosmos. What the hell? Okay, being a syncretic text, often weave together elements of Greek mythology with Jewish and Christian ideas. So, these were made in the 2nd century BCE to the 6th century. While the oracles acknowledge the mythological worldview, they reinterpret these stories in ways to serve religious or moral messages. You know, I don't. That information is not really useful when ChatGPT types up that. It's just like useless words. Previously to the erection of the tower, I'm just going to continue. Men appear very generally to have apostated from patriarchal worship. Apostatize from, what does that mean? I honestly don't know what that means. I don't know, honestly, quite a bit of words every so often, but I'm glad I can read this text, unlike some other texts, to be honest. Let's see, apostated. To commit apostasy. The act of refusing to continue to follow, obey, or recognize a religious faith or previous loyalty. The act of standing away from something. So before the erection of the tower, men they rejected patriarchal worship. So that means worshiping like either men or just like having men be rulers or kings, or like having kings and like rulers and stuff like that, which I mean, it basically is like being like a male dominated world, I guess. So interesting. Okay, so it's like women ruled the world at that time before the tower. That's interesting. About this time, a further deviation from the truth took place, and upon the first and more simple corruption was engrafted an elaborate system of idolatry. Okay, so let's read some of this text down here. Upon the rebuilding of Babylon, the tower was completely and most probably on the original plan. It is described by Herodotus as a pyramid of 8 steps and about 700 feet high. Its ruins, which are still known upon the spot as the Burst Nimrod, or the Tower of Nimrod, are described in Sir R.K. Porter as a prodigious pile of unburnt brick cemented with mud. Yeah, right. check this out. Sorry, I'm just so interested. Let's see. Who is Sir R.K. Porter? And the Nemrod. Let's check this out. He was a British, yeah. Porter sounds definitely British. European, sorry. And let's see here. The name Burst Nimrod comes from a biblical figure Nimrod who was traditionally associated with founding of several ancient cities, including Babel, Iraq, and Nineveh. But he didn't. So I don't get history, man. Sometimes history is just so dumb. Oh, look at this. The ruins of Burst Nimrod were believed by some early scholars, including Porter, to be the actual remains of the Tower of Babel, though modern archaeology has identified it as the site of the ziggurat of Etemenanke in Babylon. I'm gonna look this up. Burst Nimrod. Let's check it out. Okay, so it's kind of like a small hill in like a desert. And there's just like a little thing sticking out from it. I mean, the picture doesn't really do it justice. I can't really tell its scale, but I guess it's not extremely massive, but the mound itself, I guess, is yeah, these, dude, like, interesting. I really want to show some of these pictures. I don't know how to edit them in, but I'm looking at some pictures. But just look look some of this stuff up, and you'll just pause the video and just take a look and just really dig around. I mean, they're saying it's a ziggurat. It looks, I mean, if it was destroyed, it's definitely destroyed, and what remains of it, it's really just like a giant, like, kind of coral looking rock sticking up, which, dude, I mean, it's definitely not natural, and for it to be a ziggurat, it really looks destroyed. I mean, it really does look destroyed. You can't sit here and tell me it looks destroyed, and then, like, whoever destroyed it was like, yeah, I feel kind of bad that I destroyed it. And they put this, like, kind of like giant rock in the middle. It's very strange. Very interesting, nonetheless. Really cool. Alright, let's continue. So it says it still rises about 250 feet, which in some of the pictures it kind of does, but like I said, the pictures really don't do it justice. Oh no, my laptop froze. What is going on? Alright, let's close this and continue. Okay, some account of these deviations will be found in the extracts of Epiphanius, Cedrenus, and the other Paschal Chronicle. What is mentioned under the name of barbarism was probably the primeval patriarchal worship. So they're saying Scythism? Oh, look, yeah, right there, down there. Scythia. I was about to say, like, what? So they're saying barbarians or Scythians, right? Because that's what, when they talk about, like, Gaelic tribes and stuff like that, they like to refer to them as, like, Scythic peoples. And these are just, like, horseback people, or, like, the Mediterranean, non-Roman Empire people, so to speak. Excuse me, my stomach's growling. Guess I'm getting hungry. Actually, I kind of do need some water. I think last episode I was, like, dying of thirst. I had to take a water break. this is also your reminder to drink water as well. Okay. It was succeeded by a corrupted form of superstition, which is known among the ancients under the name of Scuthism or Scythism, which was most prevalent from the flood to the building of the tower. Excuse me. Interesting. Okay, so they're saying the Scythians and that culture, like whatever that culture represents, this horseback riding culture, or maybe this, they like to call them nomadic groups, but they're not really. They like kind of go back and forth, I think, depending on the seasons. I don't know, but to say they're nomads is kind of like, it's just not really a very useful word, I would say. So, they mentioned Scythian people to be like horseback riding. They have very like, oh man, I have to review my civic knowledge because there's like a whole king's list for it and rulership that happened in those areas. That there's like a good YouTube video I would like to link. But yeah, Scythism is like basically the people of like Kazakhstan and like southern Russia, and maybe like Mongolia, maybe not really, kind of like Caspian and I think the Black Sea, like in that area. And we got some Harley Davidsons making a celebrity guest appearance. Okay, let's continue. Which was the most prevalent? So the tower is a very important time. Such a huge like time period in humanity. It's just like nobody really cares about it or knows about it, and it's just all mythology, and that's it. The new corruption at the time introduced by Nimrod was denominated Ionism or Hellenism. What the hell? Really? Hellenism? Ionian? So the people of Turkey and these groups, they're saying that all those people, like so the Hebrew language is a Semitic language, and then older than that, I think not necessarily older, but like the people during Jesus' time and earlier of that, they were speaking Aramaic, right? So, well, I guess they were speaking like Phoenician. Yeah, it was all Phoenician. So these Ionian groups, they would have all been Phoenician. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is kind of consistent. So they're saying everybody in that area was all, so from like eastern Greece to like Turkey, and then into like I guess more of like the Levant, I would say, is this Hellenistic culture, and this was introduced by Nimrod, which is like a branch of patriarchy. Okay. It's interesting to kind of, you don't really have to believe any of this stuff, but if you're interested, just kind of just ponder about the ideas and kind of really consider it. Because I don't believe this stuff. I'm not like, everything in this book is real. It's like, I just kind of like take what I think is really interesting and kind of really compare it to what I know, and then also like really consider it. And then sometimes I ask other people too, like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And see what they think. Like, well, I read it from a book. But in any case, or Hellenism, and both are still flourishing in the East, where the well-known appellations of Brahmanism and Buddhism, whose priests appear to have continued in uninterrupted successions of the Brahmanes and the Germanes, the philosophical sects of India mentioned by Megasthenes and Clitarchus. Interesting. Megasthenes and Clitarchus. Okay. So Hellenism is Brahmanism? And Buddhism? And that. So all those, like, what? So this book's like trying to say all those ancient stone sites in India and like in Cambodia and in like Indonesia possibly are all from this Tower of Babel, perhaps? Very interesting. Really, really interesting idea. Really, really interesting idea. I would say I like it, but that answers a lot of questions. You know, these stone builders, in making a Tower of Babel, going all over the world, building stuff. You have a patriarchy, the men are always in charge, and the men were in charge and they started building. And, interesting, really interesting ideas. I gotta end this episode because we're getting to the end here. By the introduction of a more degenerate superstition, Nimrod appears to have aimed at the establishment of an universal monarchy in himself and his descendants, of which Babylon was to have been the metropolis, and the tower the central temple of their idolatries. Last thing, most probably derived from my own, for the worship of the great goddess or universal mother was then introduced, as well as idolatry. It signifies also a dove, which was the standard of the Assyrian Empire. The universal mother is the dove. Most probably derived from Ione. So Ione is the patriarchy, which is Hellenism, which is Brahmanism, which is so Sithism is not Hellenism. It's different, right? The new corruption at that time introduced by Nimrod. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to end it here, man. This is crazy. We'll start again on the next page. Check out more for sure.